Yeah, that's my presentation. Hey, again, very warm welcome. You may be actually curious why on earth a banker is going to talk about the freedom. Now, just to put it a little bit in perspective, we are the Polish Development Bank. We have been set up basically 100 years ago in 1924. Our mission at the time was identical to what we are doing now. So our mission was to provide for development of social economic welfare in Poland. I'm actually lying, it has changed. We have just changed it recently. We have added the word sustainable social economic growth in Poland. But the reality is that, and this is what I'm going to talk about in my little presentation, is that in fact, the real freedom is not possible without economic freedom. This is actually interesting data that came from World Bank last year. Is a very clear association between the GDP per capita vis-à-vis the level of freedom within the particular countries. And this is kind of quite intuitive slide, quite obvious. Everyone, maybe with a few exceptions, but you could intuitively say that the more freedom in the country is, the wealthier, the better living conditions are, etc., etc. But so one could say, okay, the more freedom, the more freely and democratic countries, the people are actually living better off. But what I'm going to say is I'm going to say something different. The reality is that the more economic freedom in the country is the more actual freedom at the end of the day societies are going to enjoy in that country. Because it's actually the economic freedom that is defining and impacting and fostering the social change and social improvement in the society that in turn provides for a better political relationship, for the better political system that in turn impacts the creation and maintenance of the institutional change and structure of the state, which in turn translates into the democracy and actual freedom. And the more, of course, there is actual freedom in the country, the more economic freedom we have to continue our life. Because what is actually economic freedom? If people are allowed to grow their businesses, to learn, develop, do what they want to do, what they feel they are best at, what they actually are good at, they are getting more and more independence. It's actually quite obvious, and I think we all share the same experience. The more economic freedom we have, the more money we earn, the more successful we are with whatever we are doing, the more we can actually do in our life. We can go to holiday, we can go to Croatia, we can go to Italy, to Estonia, we can take weekends with our kids and family, etc., etc. So the more economic freedom we have, the more ability to shape our own future we have. And once we get to this stage, many of us, if not all, are starting to think about the next level. Okay, I'm happy with my personal life. I'm very comfortable with my house, flat, with my car, with my cat, with my kids, anything. Why don't I think about wider perspective, which is my neighborhood, my local community, my city, and at the end of the day, my country. So we as economically independent people are able to start to shape our life exactly as we want to have it. And then this in turn provides into the changes into the country's politics, country's setup. It actually allows us to start shaping the real democracy as we all want to have in our particular countries. Of course, the growth of this exchange exchange of ideas, exchange of views actually is a fundament of the real democracy, of the real republic. To use the ancient Greeks' definitions, and that improves the political quality of life in the entire country. That actually is a fundament for a real democracy that is real independent, that provides for real freedom. Because only, as we all know, especially in our region, that was actually sealed behind the Iron Curtain for so many years. We know how important that is. So this in turn provides for real political freedom, which again in circle ensures the maintenance and stability of the economic freedom of all the people living in the country. So the importance of this, to realize this, is actually, I think, something we are very much experiencing right now. We are all in all these horrors and terrible things that actually happened in the Ukraine with the Russian invasion, and I dare to say that it could be this very fact that Ukraine over these years, because actually very interesting. We all started, give or take, in 1989 or early 90s, being relieved from the influence and impact of the Soviet Union. Some of our countries were actually physical part of the Soviet Union. Actually, I was in the summer 1990 in Tallinn in Estonia visiting, and I can tell you how horrible that was actually at the time. And yet again, that was meant to be one of the most advanced Soviet republics, if you like, in the entire Soviet Union. Just before the Yanayev putsch that ended once and I hope forever the Soviet Union. But then again, we all have been limited, and one of the key issues was that people were prevented from actually doing business. The private business was something really not allowed in all these communist countries. Why? Because if you are able to create your own future, you are becoming slowly free. Yeah? So after the collapse of communism, the paths were various in our region, in different countries. In Ukraine, one can say that a very large accumulation of wealth happened to the very limited number of people, the oligarchy thing. And but over the last 15, 20 years, when the world changed, when there was a provision for the Ukrainians to start to travel, start to work in Poland, in Germany, in Romania, in Austria, in the Baltic states, they started to build their own society. They got the opportunity to achieve the economic freedom, and the Ukrainians were starting to bring it back at home. So that is a future. I don't have to, be sentenced to either to no work or work for some oligarch and earning some peanuts, if you like. But I can actually influence my future. I can actually provide for, making up my house, making up my garden, making sure I have better streets, etc., etc. And I dare to say that could be one of the factors why Russia decided to invade Ukraine, because the actual society, the actual civil society, started to really develop in Ukraine, and that was the moment that people who didn't like that realized that if not now, they won't be able to stop it. But we all hope it's already too late, and it's not only the economic freedom in the Ukraine, but there will be the actual freedom that will came to that part of the 3 Cs neighborhood, if you like. So I will leave you with that. There is a button called laser. They told me not to touch it by all means, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to give it back to you, and thank you for your time. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, sir.
Now we have time for a short Q&A. We have some questions for Mr. Nierada. We have some questions from the audience, if there are any willing. If not, I have some questions that we got from our students that were with us yesterday and were preparing at workshops for today. So, anybody at the audience, please direct them to Karolina.
I am here if you would like to ask some question from Paweł Nierada on the economical factors impacting the sovereignty. Please, I'm here. Lots of hands. I don't know who to choose, actually. Okay, so then, Adam, can you help me with the questions from... we have it. Good for you, sir. Yeah, we like it, you see. Sir, please.
Well, hello and good morning once again. I'm Andreas Stadler, I'm the Austrian ambassador. And Paweł, thank you for this very inspiring presentation, but also for the map that you actually displayed here. When you look at the map, I think Ukraine unfortunately wasn't there yet. And I think the same goes for Moldova. We need to think about these countries as well, and in particular of how they can feed in the 3Cs idea. Because, of course, they also have the struggle for freedom, which you rightly put out. But then there is another question that I have to you. How do you see the prospects actually for the West Balkan countries? I mean, Bosnia has a coast with the Adriatic Sea, Montenegro, Albania. I think it's worthwhile actually also thinking about that. Thank you.
Okay, for the rest of you, it's not the first time we are having this conversation with Mr. Ambassador. So, well, I'm a banker, so I'm not going to talk about all the political aspects and stuff related to that, because that's not my thing to do. I can tell you that from our perspective, we are the Polish Development Bank, so we are focused on the welfare of the Polish people. However, it became absolutely clear that if we really want to have a future for Polish people, we have to have this. We have to share this future with the people from Europe, from the CCs in particular, because we can only grow this much in Poland. Yeah? We are, luckily or not, we are a little bit larger country in the region, so we are blessed with this larger domestic market. We can, produce and sell, but there are limits. If we really want to expand, we have to take example from Estonians, which it's actually a relatively small country. So whatever they are thinking about doing, they are always thinking big, because it's always foreign, yeah? Like Skype or Uber or actually Bolt or anything like that. So coming back to your question about Moldova, Ukraine, Belarus, and the Balkans, we are working very closely with development banks in all 3 countries. Majority of them actually have the development banks. Some of them have other institutions, not banks, but development institutions. We are also, right as we speak, we are also very involved with Moldova. We are assisting the Moldova government, which is a truly very young and energetic and very committed team. They have their own issues. We all know about the again Russian influence, including military influence. But we are working together with them on providing them with know-how and assets to build their own development institution, because the development institutions are actually very fundamental of building up the society, building up the economic fundaments for the democratic society, for building up and maintaining the fundaments of democracy. And the development banks, development institutions are very important tools in actually making best of what is being offered by the world, starting with the European Union, with the help, with the assistance instruments for this. So I think this is Moldova. This is going to be Ukraine. We are also very, very involved with the Ukraine number of things. You know, the aid funds, all the stuff we have as a bank. We have given short of $10 million to donated to the National Bank of Ukraine for supporting the whatever best needs are in Ukraine currently. And I think eventually that will apply to Belarus, as we have seen 2 years ago, what started to be happening over there. Balkans, not an expert. We have a very close relationship with the development banks from Slovenia and Croatia. Very close, very different, very different countries. We have very interesting exchange with Albania, for instance. They don't have the development banks. They were trying to develop that with the European Commission. I think we will be helping them on our side on this one. Bosnia and Herzegovina, I have been only once there, and 3 days here convinced me that it's a super complicated thing. So I don't know how it's going to end up. It's really developed. It's really difficult to tell, especially now. But I think the momentum is there, and if only these nations will be really willing to move forward, I think that is a very very welcomed and very sort of ready to reciprocate environment in the European Union and within the Three Seas region in particular.
I might mention that I spoke earlier about having students here. The State of Poland Foundation invited 50 students from across the region to come here. They participated in a competition, writing an essay about the region. And the winners came with us, had workshops yesterday where we were discussing some of the Three Seas related issues. And during those workshops, we prepared some questions for today, one of which is about the narrowing economic gap between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. How does this change the economic dynamics between the two parts of Europe? Does it change trade flows or which investments are coming between these two parts of Europe?
It's a nice one. I would say yes and no. I think the key is to realize the potential on the north-south axis, because we can all see that over these years, starting with the communist time, there was our economies. It's been in particular visible in Poland, were as a sort of transit field on the traffic between the inland of the Russian Empire and the Western countries, and it was built like that, including roads, including gas pipeline, including crude pipelines, everything like that. And moreover, we have been, again coming back to the freedom concept, we have been pushed to be contained within our own frameworks. Yeah, I was working with one global investment bank back in the 90s, and I was actually working in Croatia on the project, and I met people from Price Waterhouse. They were like managers and the directors of Price Waterhouse Coopers, so like really the best guys from the region. And we have had the dinner over beer and something, and I realized this was like the first time they realized there is 38 million people in Poland, because they were actually coming from Albania. They were the Price Waterhouse partners coming from Albania, and they were absolutely convinced that all these countries in here are, you know, these little scattered countries that we don't deserve our say because we are too little, too weak, and it was always like that. And I think it's wrong, and it's a beautiful example of Estonia. It doesn't actually matter. It does to the extent, but in reality, it doesn't really matter if there is 1 million people in the country, 2 million, or 50 million people. If you have something to say, you have every right to say it. And in particular, all our nations have absolute right to decide for themselves. And that was actually one of the reasons, underlying assumptions for we as a bank, we have set up the 3 Cs investment fund, which is to fund the economic projects in the region that will support the development and the growth of the economies in the region. And one of the key assumptions was we will set it up with all the development banks from the 3 Cs countries, because we don't know what's the best for Slovakia. We don't know for what's the best for Romania. We don't know what's the best needed for Estonia. We can think about it, and if you don't take a voice, we can tell you what's from our perspective best for I don't know, for Czech Republic and stuff. But that is fundamentally wrong, because it will be always what's the best from our perspective. So what will be the best first for us rather than for these respective countries. It's about having a say. It's about having a real freedom, being able to decide about your future, starting from the economic future.
Yes, thank you. That sounds like a good answer to this question from our students. And this is this part of the conference.
We have one more question actually from the room.
Somebody's
Mr.
out there.
Paweł, do you mind?
Oh,
one
yeah,
last
absolutely.
question.
No.
Okay, so I'm just going to the back of the room because we have a volunteer in here. Please, sir, ask your question.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Podgorski. I'm a war journalist and also work in Ukraine. I would like to ask the question about how you see the difference in the economical development of those countries. Is this any danger for cooperation? Because like the countries are very different inside the 3 Cs initiative. For example, in case of leadership or something like that, because how you see it in the future, and also the case of EU, are there any possibilities in the future that it will be like in some competition to inside the EU or more? Thank you.
Yeah, it's, I will leave aside all the political bit of the question, which we can have, but. Well, of course, there are different stages of economic development in the countries. I think the key is to seize the opportunity, to understand it's not only about how many things we can sell to Brussels or to France or something, but to realize there is a very good opportunity to actually do business between our neighbors, between all of us. And sometimes this might be even better opportunity, because in the old European Union we have to compete with all these old players and stuff. While in here we actually can realize there is much more space and opportunity for the things for the goods or services we can provide. I think again I would come back to my presentation. And I would take we have started all from the give or take for a very, very similar starting position. So collapse of the communism, in majority of these countries that was the Soviet communism. In the Balkans that was a different type of Tito era communism, but give or take it was the same time. At the same time it collapsed everywhere. And we were all starting with the rather similar situation, so very bad shape economies with these beginning of the oligarchs, so the former apparatchiks or whatever, who were one way or another achieving power over a large number of assets. And for whatever reasons, it's probably a matter for entire different presentation. We can discuss that later. But for whatever reasons, in Poland, the oligarchs that started to develop, it actually stopped. So not everything was seized by these limited numbers of groups of powerful people or powerful businesses, but many other independent businesses started to grow. Many other independent businesses started to develop, providing for the economic freedom, which in turn provided for development of the actual civil society. We have now quite interesting businesses in Poland that have been developed over the last 30 years. Growing from the once courtyard, like for instance, there is a second largest in the world manufacturer of roof windows and windows, which is a company named Fakro, which is the second largest manufacturer in the world after Velux, and it was set up in the village in Poland in the 90s. Yeah? So not coming from the large oligarchs groups, not coming from anything like that, just business. And I think that's key looking forward, to realize and seize the opportunity that is in the region. And one of these mechanisms, tools for that is a meeting like this. So bring people in here, in Warsaw, in Sofia, in Tallinn, in Riga, and to realize there is a huge potential for exchange, for all kinds of exchange, intellectual, business, cultural, holidays. Yeah. I can only recommend you this. I did it in 2018. We have taken a car and I've done the northern loop going through the Vilnius, Riga, Tallinn and back. Was really excellent. 2019 I did that on the south, going through via Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and then back via Vienna, actually, back through to Poland. Excellent time. You have to book some time for this, but I can only recommend you how beautiful and how sort of enriching these trips are on all levels, including business. But so this is one thing, and the other thing is again to believe in yourself, to reach for this economic freedom, because this is actually actual freedom. This is maybe it's not the actual freedom, but it's a sine qua non that is, without this it's not possible. So be brave enough to reach for your dreams. It sounds very American, but it's very true. There is no small nation in the world. It's not like Putin said that the big nations should talk. No, there is no small nation. There are us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.